Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Humphrey Ho on the line, and he's president and managing partner over at Helios and Partners. And this episode is part of our CPG Convergence Conference series, where we bring you the best of those that are attending and participating in the CPG Convergence Conference that's taking place on June 25th in Los Angeles. If you're just tuning in and you haven't been listening to the series, this is coming up quick, so grab some tickets. There's going to be a link in the show notes that you can click on to purchase your ticket. And I'll be out there. I'm going to be doing live interviews from the stage, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Humphrey will be there, and all of the other guests that you've heard on this series will be in attendance as well. So come meet them, sample products, have some fun. Humphrey, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam, for having me. And it's really nice to talk to everybody here today.
All right. So we got a lot to talk about today. So we're going to get into Helios and Partners and really how you're investing for future legacy CPG brands over versus quick exits. So super interesting to talk about that and to get into your thesis on why you're taking that approach in Helios and Partners. But first, give me a little bit about your background. How'd you get into this business? Like, where did this start for you?
Yeah, so I was never meant to be in any business, I suppose.
Same. Go ahead.
I graduated from neuroscience and surgery from the University of Toronto, so I was definitely be a doctor. But I took on an MBA. I founded a business with a few buddies. We exited just before the Great Recession.
Wow.
And from there, I got my taste of entrepreneurship. I worked in a variety of advertising agencies in the middle. And then I also got a chance to work in ventures as well, Google, and practicing both sides, being acquired and, of course, acquiring businesses. And so today, Helios and Partners manages a fund that specifically focuses on fashion, luxury, beauty, stocks, and in the Series A space, so businesses that are about $5.5 million. And we also focus on media publications and influence by bringing together what today will generate a lot of growth for marketers. And so those are the two focuses that we have in our business, and that's the investing mantra that we have today.
Go a little bit further into that. When you were developing this, I'll use your words, mantra or the thesis for the company in general. You're smart yourself. You work with a smart group. You have background. You have experience. Like, you must have saw something to take this direction. Like, can you go into that a bit?
Yeah, so fashion, luxury, beauty itself has always been a high margin business that has the ability to actually create what we call future legacies, right? So businesses that have enduring platforms. It's not to say that I don't personally invest in technology or we don't focus on AI-enabled businesses today. The consumer is a really permanent part of our economy. There's lots of parts of the consumer, and this being consumer packaged goods, the CPG, there's food, of course. But if you think about the better side of life or the Dolce side of life, fashion, luxury, beauty, and self will always be there, whether it's a good economy or a bad economy. But we choose to focus on that part of the business because we understand it. We understand it from two fronts. And the first front is we understand how these businesses work and the dynamics of it. I spent a lot of time both as the vendor, the ad agency, to a lot of fashion, luxury, beauty brands. We've also acquired marketing communications businesses that specifically focus on the fashion, luxury, beauty, and self side. So when it comes to evaluating the businesses, not only just financial or legal due diligence, actually understanding what the founder is looking to build and investing into their growth story, we're able to go a little bit deeper than I think a lot of folks who are simply just looking to write a check.
And I want to like zero in on something here because I think I don't want to use the word counterculture, but it's this counter to maybe the way some people do their businesses and they're looking for that quick exit. But you've used the word more than once of like legacy and looking for that. Can you talk or working with legacy brands and trying to pick what's going to be that next legacy or that next thing? Why that approach versus just the traditional, just in and out kind of version of things?
Yeah, so as a single family office, we have an investment time window of forever. A lot of institutional venture capital have a 3, 5, or 7-year exit window. They have to return their distribution to their LP, other than the partners, and they're pooled investors, and that's the way they work. For us, we have the luxury, I suppose, of looking at businesses that are fundamentally built to endure. So a good example is
I like where you said that, by the way. That is a luxury. I feel like sometimes that, maybe somebody would be like, they want to hold on to it, maybe. But go ahead. I like the way you position that. That is a luxury. Go ahead.
it is a double luxury. Time is the most luxurious thing outside of space, and really the ability to afford something luxurious.
Hmm.
The time is probably the most luxurious thing. But businesses, I think, that prioritize artificial scaling, for example, receive a large check at every single round of their raises from seed all the way through Series B or C. Someone's bound to be part of the trend that I call holding the bag, right? So
Hmm.
fundamentally, someone is going to be overvalued. That
Hmm.
business might take a dip, and a lot of investors will suffer. Brands who have founders, brands are all founded by great founders, but those founders that have a long term legacy building approach to solving either a problem or really just being very passionate about their specific niche of beauty, luxury, and wellness, exhibit behaviors and run businesses that are, they go steadily. They don't experience massive moonshot type growth. But if you look back over a 10-year period, the compounded returns for investors actually will be higher. And this is no different than if you hit the folks that are like Kathy Wood, who invest in, ARK Invest, right? These
Hmm.
are high growth business, tech, AI businesses, what's coming next versus what Warren Buffett does, invest in Coca-Cola, American Express. And over a 50-year period, yeah, he was still at some point America's wealthiest man because you
Hmm.
look back at the way that they approach building wealth. And it's the same for us. We have that luxury of time. We're co-invested with people also who don't have a quick flip in mind. And so we choose to invest in founders who sometimes are forgotten in the shuffle of this high growth type 3 to 5 year scalable approach to growing a business. And so often liquidity is transactional. We would prefer our liquidity to be strategic.
Mm. How does or does, I could say this either way, how does or does this shift your approach to brand equity?
So, for example, what we typically do with brand equity is we first look at what has been for the past of the business. But being a Series A investor, a lot of businesses, their histories may be relatively thin, and what you see on a spreadsheet is going to be nominal. However, we actually look at what the founders want in terms of their product roadmap, for example. What kind of problem are they actually solving for a particular target audience or a particular generation of people? We also look at operational discipline, long-term societal impact, whether not only is the product sustainable, but is the business actually sustainable and generates true brand equity,
Mm.
something that you and I would think of as like Kleenex, right? Not just a catchy name for a facial tissue. It's something that we've been using for almost 100 years. And so
Mhm.
can we actually invest into that? Because I think that long-term wise, from a brand equity standpoint, businesses that last longer, are built to go 10 or more years, tend to have a lot more brand equity. They become the entire category themselves. And that's what we want to invest into.
So we talked a little bit about the brand or the product side of things. Let's talk about the founder side of things, like the people behind it. How do you distinguish, like, on those that want the kind of like the rapid payout versus are in for the, I'm using the word long haul, but that are looking at building something of legacy that's going to be around for a long time?
Yeah, so it really does come down to having these face-to-face conversations with founders, and we love to meet them in Santa Monica. We meet them in Singapore. We meet them in Hong Kong. We meet them in
Mm.
Shanghai, and we met them in Bogota in our different offices. When they come in, they sort of have a twinkle in their eye. Their
Mm.
story is not only just functional or it solved the problem for themselves or solved the problem for their family. It's something that when you ask them about, "But why are you doing this?" There's a little bit of a smile before they answer the question. And it's a universal smile of, "You're not going to understand what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it
Yeah.
anyway."
Yeah.
And so that's a beautiful, that smile, that twinkle, that looking left with their eyes. There's a little bit of a behavioral thing that we see that is universal. But more importantly, is they'll talk about this. They're like, "I'm here to build a platform."
Mm.
They'll say something along the lines of a platform. Or, "I'm here to solve this need until it's done." Or, I might sell this company or we might exit this company at some point. But for now, what I really, really want to do is focus on building something that solves the test of time, or they'll say something that solves a real world problem,
Mm.
or that they're so passionate about it that their founder story was likely going to include something along the lines of they were working in a very comfortable job. They quit that job, put almost everything on the line to risk it, and maybe even brought a few founders along the way, convinced a few co-founders to come with them on this
Mm.
journey in order to solve this problem that they don't even think it's a multi-billion dollar problem. But if we look at it from a financial standpoint, it
Yeah.
could be a multi-billion dollar problem. So these are folks that are a little bit of naivete, but that naivete is good because they're focused on solving the problem. Their investors are supposed to be the people that help them solve all the variety of things that they're not good at.
So, Humphrey, a lot of different things you could be looking at right now, but I'm curious if I'm a fly in the wall of your office, like what excites you right now? Like what are you looking at?
Yeah, it's a really good example. That's a really good question. What we're looking for right now are brands that, of course, are future legacies. They have the ability to last 10 or more years, maybe even create a specific platform or category for themselves. But specifically, we're looking at two different kinds of brands. The first kind of brand are what we call AI enabled, right? So those that are using AI today inside the entire organization. But more importantly, they're using augmented intelligence, so across humans and that AI that's necessary to either shorten product development life cycle, increase product development offering, or as simple as being able to address the target consumer using AI in their marketing. But don't forget, every single Series A brand we approach, 50% of all the money that they spend is marketing operations. So I'll give you an example. We've been looking at fragrance brands recently, and those that are using Amazon Nova to, of course, aggregate Amazon shopper data, for example, they're capable of coming up with fragrances and fragrance ideas, not in 18 months, but rather in 3. So they scale fast and also fail fast. And so they're able to actually come back with new formulation, new things to address their consumer. And that's really critical because a lot of time brands in any space fail at product development, product R&D, and product research because it takes too long. Right? The old craft isn't supplemented by anything digital. But in the case of fragrance, that's a really good example. Outside of fragrances, for example, we are also looking for brands in cosmetic and beauty, in polypeptides and multipeptides, for example, that again are also AI or augmented enabled. They have something unique because in the skincare space, in the fragrance space, in the hair care space, patentability or unique chemicals or unique finds are very important to establish a specific niche or to capture a particular trend. On top of that, it's not a specific category of brand, it's actually multi-categories. And we're seeing more and more brands that are built like this. I call them rituals. And so the world is going into a space where there's more stinks than dinks, right? Single income, dual income, no kids. There's more and more of these folks who have more time to themselves, more me time. And this could be people who kids are no longer there anymore, so they're much older, or just simply younger folk who choose not to have kids or choose to have kids later. With more time, they develop rituals, oral rituals, shower rituals, travel rituals,
Interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
together rituals, me time rituals, rituals at the office. And so as we return to the office. And so we're seeing a lot of different kinds of products developed that combine hardware, software, maybe an app, maybe some skincare, maybe even body care or body oils as well. But it's a combination. It's to address a specific journey requirement that you have. And these are great brands. They exceed the singular category that they might be in. So for example, just focusing on hair care or just focusing on skincare is a good example. They're focused on the entire ritual. I've seen brands that are single or 2 SKU, but I've also seen brands that are 8 or 9 SKUs, and they just specifically involve that particular problem. And they're using technology like polypeptide to address that problem. And those are some of the things that we are focusing on, and we're interviewing and seeing and meeting a lot of brands, and we're actually creating an accelerator coming up pretty soon to do this at scale.
Man, Humphrey, it's been great having you on the show today. I learned a lot. I feel like I'm sure my audience did as well. And it's given me a new perspective on thinking about how brands are invested in and even just the thought process of legacy brands. 'Cause I feel like we don't hear that type of conversation enough. Like the quick exit, the quick check, that's what gets a lot of the media attention. But the founders that are sometimes overlooked that are just year over year building and building and building and have a solid base and everything else. Like sometimes they don't get some of the, you know what I mean? Some of the shine that I believe they deserve for being in those trenches and creating the next Kleenex or whatever it is, right? I think it's awesome. So if that being said, Humphrey, if somebody is listening or watching this and if they want to learn about Helios and Partners, how do they do that? How do they connect?
Connect with us at heliosandpartners.com or just find me on LinkedIn. Humphrey Ho is my LinkedIn, and I'm happy to connect anytime.
Amazing. For everybody listening, just so you know, we'll definitely put some links in the show notes so you can just click on the links, head right on over, connect. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, don't forget, first off, make it out to that CPG Convergence Conference. The link's in the show notes so you can grab a ticket, but also hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. You heard me correct. Each and every day, we're bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way in your journey. So hit that subscribe or follow button. And Humphrey, thank you for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me on the show, Adam, and it's really nice to speak to everybody here today.